Welcome to Writer Syndrome, podcast about writing from start to finish. This episode, we're getting into book titles, titling books. I'm Russ Capasso, and joining me is Tim Ledney. Tim, how are you? I always ask you that.
I'm good. Thanks for asking.
Good.
You're not going to ask me a stumper?
No, I'm actually going to ask you how much. I'm going to get right into it. Let's just get right into it.
Oh, whoa. Am I ready? Okay, let's go.
Ready? Are you ready for this? Are you ready for this?
Bring it.
How many titles did you go through before you decided on the one you have right now as the title of your manuscript that you're still shopping around?
I think that's a good way to put it because I think the title could change at some point. I love the title.
I do too.
No.
I was thinking about it today. I was like, wow, it is. I think it's just a great title. I don't know. You kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, you want to say what the title is?
The title currently for the book that I'm shopping around is Critical Mass.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. It seemed to be evocative of the characters, the journey, the location of it, since it's in Massachusetts.
The thing, the thing that
of the thing,
it's in it,
of the story in itself, and like the kind of creature feature aspect of it.
Location, so, Massachusetts, like kind of just
these characters kind of being critical of themselves and of each other, and all. So it seemed to kind of hit all the right pieces. And I remember when I landed on it, I was like, oh, that's it.
Yeah.
Like that's the title.
Yeah.
And then I researched, right? I think whenever you come up with a decent title or something you're kind of interested in, you want to make sure that it's not an already very successful book or movie or piece of media.
We'll talk about mine in a minute.
So it came back like the book title itself doesn't exist, at least in like the genre and kind of type of story that I'm telling.
Was there anything in particular you did to get there? Or did you like consciously think about it? Or was it just one of those, you're in a shower moment, you're like, oh, critical mass? Or did you like...
Yeah, it was a shower moment.
Yeah.
And I remember like the moment, it was on the couch and I was like, oh shoot, like I think this is what I want to title it. But I was writing kind of without one for a little while.
Yeah.
I think I titled it like, it was like unnamed punk project, it was like some kind of in process.
Yeah.
And at one point, I think I had it as like Boston 77, like really kind of like vague titles. Yeah. And I didn't know, because at the time, those were all just kind of placeholders.
Yeah.
But I was hesitant because at the time that I'd kind of come up with it, there was like a synchronicity to a Flanagan show on Netflix called Midnight Mass, which I thought I love that show. I came up with this title kind of independent. Obviously, that's like a mass in a church.
Yep.
This is much different. It's not like leaning on the kind of religious side of the meaning of the word. So I was hesitant. I was like, oh, is it too close to Midnight Mass, like Critical Mass? But no. I don't think it is. It's a completely different story, although they happen to share genres, but everything else is pretty unique about it. So it was kind of close. In my head, I was kind of turning around the idea, like, do I want to do like a character namey thing? Like, if it's going to be a series, do I want it to be like Judy Malone's Critical Mass? Because then it kind of feels like cancerous, right? Which, like, that's certainly part of like the subtext of the title as well.
Yeah.
But I didn't want it to be like a Harry Potter-y thing, and I'm not 100% sure I'm going to continue in this world, and that I want that kind of character name moniker above it, So that's kind of how I landed on mine. How'd you land on your title?
Mine was very early on. Again, it was back and forth emails. My old man and I were coming up with the original ideas. And he actually just threw out the title very early on. And it kind of just stuck, and I just went with it.
You weren't like, you don't know me, Dad.
No, not at all. I was like, nah, it sounds like a great title. I did zero, but I didn't do any homework. I knew... I made like a bunch of mistakes. One, I would go back and probably retitle it something else. What that is, I don't know. Especially now knowing that I have other books that are be kind of in the same universe, I may make them a little bit, have a theme attached to them. So you're kind of in this world. Definitely knew that there were things called Host. I knew there's like 2 or 3 movies. There's anytime anyone looks up Host novel, they're going to get Stephanie Meyer, The Host, which is not my book. So like in terms of discoverability, very, very low. Not a good title for the book. I think matched with the artwork, though, I think it falls squarely in the genre pretty well. Yeah, if I could go back and like retitle it, I would. I mean, I guess I could technically, but that's a lot of work that I don't with. So,
I mean, it's a punchy title.
Yeah,
but I definitely see. I understand the discoverability aspect of it because there's multiple books and movies with the similar title.
Yeah. So, and like of the kind of getting into looking into researching titling books and whatnot, there's a couple common things you look for a good title. And like one of them is like intrigue factor. Another one is title discoverability. And then of course, genre pairing and making sure it fits within your genre. So I didn't really look at that all that much when I was like, yeah, this is the title of the book.
Yeah.
Full well knowing.
For you, it seemed like it fits so well and you were operating in a bit of a bubble.
Yeah. That definitely, it just fits so well because like the theme and like the actual plot of the story, like it ties directly to it, and like.
I mean, you must have realized not early, but before publishing that there was multiple other pieces of media with the same title.
Oh,
so
I knew.
So you intentionally chose to keep it.
Yeah.
Because like there's that 2006 movie you and I watched.
Yep.
There's a horror movie that recently came out on Shudder that I watched with Jill.
Some British.
And then that Stephanie Meyer one, right? But
yeah, not ideal.
But I still think effective, right? I think effective and.
Yeah, I think it's just a lesson learned. It's like, try to avoid those things, like do a little research. Just Google search the title of it and see what comes up and be careful of what's tied to it and what's not. Yeah, I don't know. I think I could have done a little bit more upfront and thought about that. But I knew it was going to be a problem.
Silver lining, it's a tried and true title for many popular things.
Yes, very, very true. So. Yeah, which I think it's like looking at those three aspects for yours, like one, I think it captures the intriguing, having a title that's intriguing to the reader that captures them, right? I think Critical Mass does that pretty well. I think discoverability, like you said, you did some homework on it and there was nothing else out there that had that title.
There's really nothing else.
So, and then genre.
I don't know if it, so that's where I'm kind of a little shaky on. I think the subtext of the title, the various subtexts of the title fit from the story, but I am curious a little bit about genre expectations and whether that's a title that fits horror, because it could fit
sci-fi,
right? I think sci-fi, so it doesn't really have, it doesn't sound nefarious as much as it sounds scientific, I think. So I mean, that'll be, I don't know, perhaps a lesson learned. I still love the title and the title for the next one, right? Like I landed on that before I've even finished the first chapter. And I don't think it's going to necessarily change because it fits the genre, it fits the subgenre, it fits everything, I think the one problem with it, so like the next piece I'm working on is a ghost story and the title's Unhoused for now. It fits like everything since it's kind of a story of a suburban family losing their home and, the haunting that happens through that and them dealing with homelessness and being unhoused. I know that there's a bit of a moment society that we're going through, whether we want to continue to use the word unhoused, and is that like kind of left-wing PC nomenclature or not? And I see that debate going online, and it makes me think like, too bad. I'm going to use this title.
Yeah, I mean,
because for me, it's about the family, but it's also about the ghosts that have been unhoused and that are now kind of free to do as they will. So it just felt like I can picture the VHS tape of the horror movie Unhoused that just feels right to me. And same thing, whereas I did research around that already and it doesn't exist yet. There's no book, there's no movie. There's some books about homelessness that feature the word unhoused, but there is no novel in the horror genre or no movie in genre that uses that word yet.
And for discoverability, I mean, people who are looking up these terms are going to come across your book. So,
right.
I mean, that's part of it. That's something to think about too. Like when you're searching, how is this going to show up in search? I mean, that's what everyone does. You're either going to Google, you're going to Amazon, you're searching for something. So it's like you kind of have to think about that when you go to title your book because you need to stand out.
And I'm okay with that because the ethos of both of my novels are kind of bleeding heart. Like, and they are, I don't know. I want to say that they're kind of like empathetic novels that are trying to focus on maybe certain characters or representational aspects of society that aren't always written about in this genre.
I got some working titles. I think I'm pretty happy with the next two because they're going to be same universe, kind of around before and after Host, and they're more focused on Lilo, the hacker character, and her kind of story, and she kind of turns into the hero of this journey here. And I came across the first one and I was like, wait a second, is the title's like right in the description of host. And I was like, how I describe the character and like thinking about like, there are many ways to like this, title book. You can do it by like setting, you can do it by like themes or whatnot. And mine kind of crosses both like the behavior of the character plus like the theme. So like the next one's gonna be called Zero Trust. At least that's what I've got it right now, which lands squarely in like, I think it's kind of the sweet spot of like, one, I think it's intriguing. Discoverability, I think, will be pretty good. I have to look to see if there's any books called Zero Trust. If there are, it's gonna be more technical, I think. I think genre pairing is perfect. It's about the character. It's a descriptor of the character, but it's also on top of that, like philosophy in cybersecurity, zero trust. You have a zero trust. You don't trust any other third parties to be part of your system, your ecosystem, because that's what causes gaps in security. So I was like, that's perfect.
So I've got a question for you, Russ. You ready for this one?
Oh, I don't know. Am I?
No. So since this character was such a standout from your first novel and you got so much feedback that she was fun to read and kind of jumped off the page, would you consider having her name in the title with like (zero trust?
I thought about that.
Especially with the interesting spelling that you use, since it's kind of a handle.
Yeah, that's crossed my mind, like doing like Zero Trust Lilo book 1 or something, and like having book 2 or something. I don't know, because you're
definitely doing another one in world with her, right? At least.
Yeah. There's gonna be one more after this that I have planned, which will be called Zero Day, which is another hacker security flaw term, and also kind of signals the end of this little story somewhat. So yeah, I thought about that, but I don't know. That's been on the whiteboard of ideas of including her name in there, but I don't know if I need to or if I should, because I kind of want it to feel.
And you want all of them to be able to stand alone, right?
Yeah, it's something I'm focused on a little bit more. Like they're all in universe, like the same universe, but I want them to just be their own standalone stories as best I can, while still kind of teeing up and setting up other things or connecting dots to other stories. But that would be my only reason why I wouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny, I've got like other, like this time travel book I've been playing around with, like the idea of, like right now the title of that one's Unraveled. And it's kind of, again, squarely about the theme of the character who's trying to solve these crimes.
Oh, that's nice.
And like, as they kind of unravel, every time they go to time travel, it gets into like their mental state and how they're kind of breaking down. So I was like, I kind of like that one. I gotta look that one up.
It works on like the timelines kind of unraveling into different strands. And
yeah.
That's great.
Yeah, so those I'm excited about. So I wish I'd just maybe put a little more thought into deciding if host was the right or not. But I still like it. I still think it
sounds like you did. It sounds like you had a moment before publishing that you could have gone and you decided not to.
Yeah, I think I was also just so far down the road too, changing the title and doing all that. But I think it fits though. I think it fits on the cover of the book with the cover art. And when you look at it, you probably think sci-fi or a thriller of some sort. So I kind of get into like. And we kind of touched on a little bit on our own, but ways of like kind of generating some ideas for titles.
Mm-hmm.
Like using parts of the story, using like the character name, like you said, like you do like a Harry Potter type thing. I think also using like the setting, it's like, like Jurassic Park. Like I think it's a great example of like the setting is like the title of the book, Salem's Lot. And these all kind of still fit within genre. I don't know if you've thought about using like any like phrases or like that from in your books before, or you just kind of.
No, really not yet.
Yeah.
I'm so early on that I've only really had probably 3 proper titles, and I kicked around, I was going to write that vampire story several months ago that I never did. And I never landed on a title I liked. I think one was like Manifest, but that exists as a literal vampire movie already. So yeah, no, I think I'm really still early days. It's still kind of like momentary inspiration that I have for the titles. I haven't really. They've come to me for better and worse, I guess.
It's funny. I keep coming across this thing about one word titles. You obviously there's a ton out there, right? Twilight, Frankenstein, Nevermore. You have all these one word titles, but they all kind of like are pretty unique to themselves. Obviously, some of these just have time on their side. But that's another discoverability issue you have to think about. And the same problem with mine, like host, and people are going to like punch in host. And if they punch in host book, because like if they're looking for the novel, they're going to come up with the Stephanie Meyer, book, not mine.
You brought up Frankenstein, and I just want to like pause for a second on that, because that wasn't the original title for that book.
Mm-hmm.
The original title was Prometheus Unbound.
Oh, that's right. Yep.
Which I don't know if we would have ever seen a Universal movie called. They probably would have retitled it.
Yeah, that's a good point. So yeah, I don't know. Some of the things I guess to be cautious of watching it. Watching out for is like with the one word titles. Watching out for like overly complex language, like having too long of a title. I'm reading a book right now, and it's part of a series, and I was actually confused what the actual title of this individual book was and what was the title of the series. I had to go to like the Goodreads page to see like which was which, and it's finally like, oh, okay, I see each one's got like this kind of running theme. It's the keys of whatever, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, so it was a little confusing. So I think being cautious about like if you're gonna have this subtitle title thing, making sure that's very clear, like, oh, this is the series title name, and then this is the actual name in the series.
I feel like a really good title, you just need to make sure it's directly linked to the content of your book, because you're setting the reader up to be disappointed if the expectation's set wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I just finished reading The Silence by Don DeLillo. It's a great book. It's a great title, but I don't think the title matches the book, because I think it drew in a lot of people who were looking for apocalyptic stories and what would happen, if we were like in an EMP type situation.
Yep.
They didn't go in expecting literary fiction. So I think it resulted in a lot of negative reviews. It's a really good book, but it's not that kind of how would we survive without technology. It's more like how would our brains operate without that technology, and it's very brief. Same thing with Grady Hendrix's, he writes wonderful titles. Like they're punchy. But I just read How to Sell a Haunted House. It is a great title. It's a great title. But I was let down by the book because there wasn't so much haunting, really. I mean, as much as it was possession and puppets.
Real estate.
Real estate. I mean, it's just such a great title. Like you can imagine the book very quickly at a glance. So I had a certain expectation that was set that just wasn't delivered.
Yeah.
And maybe it was for others, but I think a title like that's great for discoverability.
Yeah.
But maybe not great for, the reviews, because I think you do need to kind of think about not just the experience the reader's having while they're reading the book, but that they may now go ahead and give you a bad review somewhere based on an expectation you set up.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't think I've encountered a book yet that stood out that much for me from like the expectation what the title was to the actual story itself or what I was going to get out of it. I'm like thinking of like even like the Jack Reacher series, like all those titles fit, perfectly within genre. And usually most of them say Jack Reacher on the top, so you know what you're getting immediately. And then it's like the title is Man Running on Plane Fuel. You know what I mean? I don't know, like Man on Tarmac. It's like, okay, that's a title book. Who cares? It's just the next
The
one.
Running Man.
Yeah. Yes.
But I mean, speaking of King, kind of, he's great at titling books, but sometimes it's simple, like something like Pet Sematary.
Yeah.
That's how it was written and spelled on the pet cemetery that was near his house when they moved, near the highway. So all of that was tied to real life, really.
Yep.
I mean, he recognized it, that it was going to, great for discoverability, a misspelling of a word. Mm-hmm. And just like it's just a haunting, evocative title. That was literally written up on a sign, that he just plucked. So
and you just like, that was it. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's kind of fun. Yeah, I'm trying to think of like other ways of finding inspiration for titles. We kind of covered like characters, obviously, of like the Harry Potters and whatnot, Percy Jackson. Settings. Yeah, I think that's a good way to kind of come up with some title ideas, especially if that setting is very important to the world. Yeah. It's like, and if it's almost as if it's its own character, then like, yes, that probably makes sense.
It's interesting thinking about when you want to be fit firmly in a genre. Like when I think of like Game of Thrones, and I think of how like George R.R. Martin writes his name and how everything is so evocative of Tolkien.
Yep.
Like Lord of the Rings, Game of the Thrones, it feels so similar.
Yeah.
But at a glance, you kind of know you're getting high fantasy. You might not know it's as sultry as it is.
Yeah.
But just from the title and the way that he's writing his name, it feels like epic fantasy right off the tip.
This is something I might do for the next couple of books I do, because I didn't really do this for the last one. I did it more for the cover art than I did the title, but testing it out amongst like friends and like writing groups and.
No, I didn't, but I feel like that's a really smart call. Like I probably should have.
Yeah. I feel like I should have done the same thing. I'm wondering if like just doing the title alone, then doing title plus cover. Because I feel like if you know what I mean, because I feel like if you hear the title, you should be able to just hear the title of a book and kind of get a sense of what you're getting yourself into. I feel like, but if someone sees the cover with the title, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," Like,
yeah, it's probably a yes and right. I think you test it without the cover, and then you test it with the cover.
Yeah.
It's a great idea. I didn't even ask for feedback about my title. I was like, this is the title.
So I am master author.
I think I did say like, did it meet your expectations based on the title? That was one of the questions that I probably cribbed from you,
Yeah.
like the
Yep.
kind of orienting beta feedback form. I think mostly people said yes, it met my expectations, but
Yeah.
no, I think it makes a lot of sense to test it amongst beta readers, folks that you trust.
Going forward is like part of the process of just I don't know how far out I need to go. I mean, you could go out to like Facebook groups and stuff like this, but a part of me feels like that feels a little too much. It's probably the right thing to do, but I think I'm going to stick with just the close group, and then beta readers at that point just being like, does this title make sense, and kind of stick with my survey when people go to read it. So it's kind of fun. So I just dropped the book blurb on the back of Host into ChatGPT, and I said, give me 5 book titles for the following description. It pumped out like real quick. So these are the 5 it gave me: Signals in the Dark,
All right.
Echoes of the Silent Satellite, The Hacked Horizon, Whispers in the Static, Code of the Invisible Watchers.
Go to the Invisible Watcher.
The last one sounds like a Marvel spinoff, like comic book or something.
Yeah.
I would like those, like aren't like terrible. I mean, I would probably take some of them, like maybe mix and match and move it around, but that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And like it got like the idea of the book.
Yeah, I got the gist.
Yeah, I got the gist. Signals in the Dark. That sounds like more like a horror. That feels like more like a horror title than
It's
anything
a
else.
chapter in Lord of the Rings, actually. Whispers in the Dark.
Yeah, The Hacked Horizon. That could work. Whispers in the Static.
Whispers in the Static sounds like white noise. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the one about the satellite? I kind of like that one. That was kind of evocative.
Echoes of the Silent Satellite. That's a
Maybe
lot
not
of
echoes, but just like that's
a
not
lot of
bad.
S's. Yeah. The Hacked Horizon. That's kind of interesting. So there you go. If you want to be, you can use ChatGPT too.
Yeah, it's not bad for like kicking out what you don't want to use. I think sometimes it's easier to see a list of titles and then I think to pick and choose certain sections of it. I still wouldn't use anything from ChatGPT, but I am very much a Luddite.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'll use it for work if I'm writing like looking for like marketing copy or something like
your
that.
emails.
All my emails. But when it comes to like creativity, it's I have an absolute phobia of using it, touching it, tainting my work with it, any of that stuff.
That's fair. Yeah, I think the title's like, I used it for the comps, which we talked about a long time ago, but it's another option for anyone out there if you want.
Didn't it make up a comp?
Yes, it made. You definitely need to do your research if you use it for comps, because I was like, wait, this author doesn't even exist. This book doesn't even exist. Like, wait, is that my pen name? Is that me? Did I write that book? I think it's gaslighting me. Yeah, so it's another option to get some ideas at least. Anything else you want to cover?
I mean, I feel like I probably use double entendre to a fault, but I think it's good to use it. I don't think I'll ever use character names, but a lot of people do. And then one thing I think maybe take comfort in is that titles change. There's a ton of famous books that started out with a much worse title and that were renamed. Handmaid's Tale wasn't originally a Handmaid's Tale. It was named Offred. So like, I think it's one of those things, like all things, don't get hung up on it. Write. And as you continue to write and edit, something will probably come out. And you can always, retitle your book at the end, even though Russ didn't.
No. I'm paying for it. How many Stephanie Meyer books she sold over the last year since my book came out? Because people are searching for mine and find hers. You're welcome, Stephanie Meyer. You're welcome.
You just need to move genre into teen romance.
Yeah, why not? Seems like a genre I should be writing. 40-year-old man should be writing.
Yeah, so creepy.
Teen romance. All right, cool. I think we covered book titles. Yeah, do it. And
have one.
Have one. So what are you reading, watching? Anything?
I just finished The Silence by DeLillo. It was awesome. And I'm biased, but I like Don DeLillo a lot. The recommendation it's not like a beach read about the end of the world at all. But it is more like what happens to our social interactions in our brains if we lost all electricity and power and our phones were dead.
So just be back in the day and we just had flame for light.
Yeah, well, it's fun. It's almost like what devices have done to our brains. So like a lot of the dialogue are more like monologues. Okay. And it's just people kind of like reciting Facebook posts without Facebook. Like there's not very much interactivity.
Yeah.
Yeah. it's so everybody's kind of talking, but nobody's really communicating with each other. They're just throwing things out,
Oh, interesting.
and hoping for reaction and not getting it,
Mm,
which I think is like the meaning of the book.
right.
So I loved it, but
It's
you're
like
not going to find out why the power's out. You're not going to find out how people survive. It's not a survival,
it's
apocalyptic fantasy. It's
so
more
it's,
like
it's
people sitting in a room just randomly saying things.
I'm just picturing it's like, and one of the scenes is like someone just showing you like a physical photo they took of their lunch, and you being like, I don't care, but if you
Yeah.
post that, like, why are you showing me a plate of food?
I'll
But
tell
if
you,
you,
like the synopsis of the book, it can completely missell what the book is. It's like an airplane's crashing, and it's the power outage during the Super Bowl. It's in like, downtown
yeah,
Chicago. Like there's so much
to make it sound like a
apocalyptic
thriller.
flair,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
but mostly it's just people in an apartment room.
classic.
So I finished that. It was great. I'm listening a little bit to Amityville horror on my runs.
Hmm.
It's not good. Um, I'm biased, I like the movies just fine, but I'm always a little weary of manipulative, creative nonfiction. I guess that's what this is. So
Yeah,
it's,
yeah,
done with interviews with the family that was supposedly haunted. It really just kind of comes across like they were really stressed out, abusive family that
hmm,
went through a traumatic experience.
yeah,
That, I don't believe in ghosts. As somebody who is a horror writer, and I get very dubious of like inauthentic storytelling and kind of quackery, or I don't know.
I agree.
So it just
Tomfoolery.
it seems completely disingenuous and like a
Yeah,
manipulative piece. Somebody's trying to pull the wool out of your eyes. It's not written from a pure standpoint. It's written
yeah,
to like sell books and to use this family and to eventually, get people to pay.
yeah.
It worked, kudos on the writer for manipulating everybody. But I'm reading it just because I feel like I'm listening to it because I feel like I kind of have to, even though I'm not really enjoying it.
Yeah.
And then that's it. I've got Pet Cemetery kind of on deck again. I read it 5 or 6 years ago.
Yeah.
I'm kind of scared to read it again since I'm so close to kind of jumping back into writing horror that I don't want to like regurgitate King. So I'll probably
Yeah.
wait until I'm
Yeah.
done with the first draft to jump back in. But
Then you read it and realize you subconsciously already
yeah, well, I mean, that's
Easy.
the thing. Is I mean, I've read it twice and watched the movie multiple times. It exists. I think objectively it's structured like a haunting, which is why it came to mind, even though it's not a story about haunting. It's almost more like possession or zombie book.
Yeah. Yep.
But the setup is like a family moves into a home.
Yeah.
It's like the typical people arriving and
Yep.
things aren't what they seem type of
Yep.
stuff.
Yeah. You want to get that vibe, that feel across in your.
And that's the same vibe that like I'm going for mine. It is like a family moves into a home. They don't stay there particularly long, but it is like the newness of a fresh move, and then
Yeah.
the decomposition of the American dream after that. Otherwise, that's about it. I feel like I haven't watched too much worth writing home about. How about you?
Reading, probably gonna finish it today. That Dream of Stewards by Johann Martin. It's like a time travel thriller. It's not bad. It's yeah, I'm probably like 50, 60 pages away from finishing that up, so I'll probably do that. That's the one that's got like, it's part of a series that he's still working on, and that was the one where I was confused by the title and the name of the series. Like, which one is it? Is it Dream of Stewards? Is that the series, or is that the title of his book? And then it's Keys of Time. I think Keys of Time is the actual title. Maybe Dreams of Stewards is the. I don't know. I don't know.
It reminds me of when I was reading Game of Thrones and I was like, what one comes next? Was it like Dance of Dragons or Crown of Feathers or
Just number them. Just number them. If they need to be read in order, just number them.
Feast of Crows? I think that was one of them.
It's a Beast of Crows, Feast of Crows. So reading now, I'm going to finish that up. I actually might be reading, jumping into a Stephen King book after this, The Shining. I've never read it, so.
I thought you read The Shining.
No, man, I'm just catching up with all my Stephen King readings, so.
Such a great title.
Yeah. So that's been it for reading. Watching, I started Loki season 2. It's been on my list for a long time. I like Loki and I like that world. But I started watching that. I'm only on like episode 2. It's fun. But I started watching that because I just watched Deadpool and Wolverine, which I know you'd seen. And
What'd you think?
I thought it was silly, stupid, fun, and like a total blast. I don't know. I thought it was. I thought it was a blast. It's like all the cameos and all the Easter eggs and all the stuff. The nods are like just on point. It's pretty funny, and just the idea of them being like a buddy cop kind of like road trip movie. It's basically what it is. Literally a road trip when they're in a car and they're fighting inside the car. It's like I really enjoyed it. So.
I have one complaint. You want to hear my one complaint? I won't go on for too long.
Yeah.
I have the same complaint about Deadpool 3 that I did about Spider-Man 3.
Yeah.
Well, actually, I've got more complaints about Spider-Man 3, the Sam Raimi one.
Yeah.
But you spend Deadpool 2 saving Vanessa, the relationship's back together. He loves this girl. They've got like an idyllic
I know exactly
fairy tale relationship.
Yeah. Yep.
And then you start with Deadpool 3 with conflict in that relationship because of what, a midlife crisis? Like his motivation, I know this is ridiculous because it's Deadpool and Wolverine, but his motivations around, like obviously it makes sense that he wants to save his world and he has friends, fine.
Yeah.
But his character motivations around his girlfriend and his midlife crisis are wrong. Like they don't fit. They're not, they don't fit the character. The stakes aren't high. Her reaction to him doesn't make sense. Like she's trying to make sure he's the best Deadpool he can be. It's just not. It's not right.
I think I agree. I agree with that one. As soon as you started going down the path, I was like, I know what he's going to say here. Because they kind of, I think they fumbled her in part 2 as well as a character. Like they just killed her, right? Then they just killed her immediately, and then they kind of did the whole time travel saber thing, right? Which was
but they have these momentary like hallucinations where like Wade is in this kind of void type area fighting to get back to her.
Yeah, and they did that in the third one too, I think, a little bit.
They reference it in the third one, but it's like it's a repetition. It's a scene that repeats in the second one, and for me, it worked. Like it works that he's like struggling like through this death wish to get back to his ex. I thought that was like the heart of the movie, and then to try to like I don't know make that the heart again of this movie, it just felt forced.
It felt
Spider-Man 3 did the same thing with like the throuple. So like.
I totally agree. It did feel a little forced and kind of tacked on there because he's like, well, is he saving his friends or he's just trying to save her? Or he's doing all of it, I guess.
Yeah. It didn't need to happen. It didn't need to happen. Like him being rejected from the Avengers and then being depressed. Like, does Deadpool get depressed?
Yeah. I think the overall theme was him just wanting to matter, right? Which is even more meta thing of like him not being part of the universe, but then they pull him in to make a ton of money. And it's kind of like, it feels like maybe I'm overthinking it, but it's like.
No, I think that's right. I think it works entirely on the meta, but it didn't work on like the character and the character motivation side. Just that one piece.
Yeah.
Everything else kind of did. But since that piece is kind of like the sliver, it's like the heart, it's like the motivator for it to feel like forced and not natural. Where I think it could have with like a little less writing. If he was just losing her again, I think that could have been enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree.
Anyway.
But anyways,
I loved it. I thought it was great. My kids really enjoyed it. It's their first R-rated movie in a theater.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's fun.
Yeah.
Definitely had its silly moments.
What do you think about Hugh Jackman? And I know you were a Logan fan, so were you okay with him returning to the role?
Yeah, and I think the way they did it was worked just fine. I mean, Hugh Jackman is Wolverine. That's just what it is, right? And I love how the joke of like they got you locked up until you're 90.
Until you're 90.
Until you're 90. It's like, no, I thought it was great. I thought, and like all the variants of him when he was bouncing around through time trying to find him. I thought that was pretty great. The Henry Cavill one, which was great, but I guess I'm dropping some spoilers here for some stuff. But
I mean, honestly, like they're marketing it so hard that they are spoiling everything.
Yeah.
And I even think Disney's being a little light on piracy, and they're allowing handheld scenes to be on YouTube.
Oh yeah.
They've seen a ton of stuff leaked that YouTube cracks down pretty quick, especially when you're Disney. I'm sure they're like, we'll ease off for a few weeks. Let's saturate.
Let it until we hit 1 billion.
Yeah.
we need a leg to kind of go long tail here. I think I wish I'd seen it with like more friends. I just went by myself to the theater one afternoon because it was so hot. I was like, I'm just gonna go to the movie theater. Some of the jokes that landed, some of the like catching some of the Easter eggs and stuff, I think would be more fun. But then it got me into wanting to watch Loki season 2 because I hadn't watched it, and obviously the TVA plays a huge part in this movie, and kind of pulling him into the sacred timeline.
Yeah, I canceled Disney Plus because I am frugal. And when they upped their prices like a year ago, I was like, I'm done, Disney, until like I have a plethora of things to watch, and then I'll go back for a month or whatever.
Yeah.
But how is Loki season 2? Is it good?
Yeah, it's good. It's kind of more the same from the first season. I'm only 2 episodes in, but so far I'm enjoying. And that's it, man. That's all I got.
All right.
That's our episode. Thanks for listening.
That's it.
We're gonna come back with the next episode. We're gonna get into
how to title a podcast is the next episode.
I think we did pretty good with ours.
Yeah, not bad.
Not bad.
Now, what do we got up next?
The topic you love, self-censorship, because you do this all the time. Always censoring yourself.
I do censor myself a lot. I think I have. I think any. I do. I think in order to be a functional human being, you have to censor yourself, and that's doubly so for a writer.
Yeah. Okay. This will be a good conversation then.
I think it's a balance. Anyway, we'll talk about it. I don't think I censor myself. I really do.
No, I think you do, because when I go to edit the podcast and I send it to you, you're like, "Oh, can you cut this out? Can you cut this out?" I'm like, Tim, I already cut out so much stuff you said.
Hey man, I'm trying to get better.
Oh man. So anyways, that'll be the next episode. So if you enjoyed this one, pass along to a friend. You can find us on Instagram at Writer Syndrome Books. Reach out to us for topic ideas, or if you want to chat, if you're an author or anyone in the writing industry, you can find all info at writersyndrome.com.